In the world of sports medicine, doctors rely heavily on case studies to help athletes to rehab from injuries. So what happens in a sport when there's not a lot of information? Well, I caught up with a young medical student who went the extra mile in the world of MMA to get the answers. When you got into mixed martial arts and you started to investigate the kind of injuries, why was there no research? Why was there no studies?
There was like some stuff, but it was mainly like I think one of the studies was looking at like somebody watching videos of fights, and I think it's from what I heard about it when I tried to talk to maybe my like mentors and stuff about it. It's just one of these things that some of the older guys find to be brutal. Okay. They're like, oh, that's like brutal. I don't want to get involved in that, and they kind of just. And I also thought about that myself. I didn't want to be this guy who was this weird guy out there who was like into this really brutal, display of, human aggression, or I don't know, whatever you can call it. But so I think that's one of the reasons that there wasn't like a big interest in it out of like the orthopedic community, and also just the novelty. Hasn't been around very long. I know that when I was interviewing for orthopedic residency, on my list of hobbies on my application was jiu-jitsu, and one of the surgeons asked me, he's like, jiu-jitsu, what is that? And then the guy sitting next to him was like, that's where half my patients come from, as like it's kind of in a joking way. So it's like one of the guys had no idea what it was, and then the other guy kind of knew something about it, but it was just kind of like it's not very known, I think, because of the novelty of it.
You decided to dig deeper, and you actually came into a gym and you signed up. What motivated you to do that?
Well, I guess I always wanted to try to do something new and different, and that stuff has always excited me.
Guys were a little resistant at first, but then obviously you talked about what you did beyond the gym. What were some of the first requests or questions they had for you as a doctor?
First ones was like you overhear stuff, like, oh, my knees kind of, like between like rounds or between classes, guys like, oh, my knees really been bothering me, and blah, blah, blah. And, you like hear it, and first couple times you don't say anything, and then maybe like the third or fourth time you hear this guys, oh, hey, I've been hearing your knees bothering me. I'm like, I'm a doctor. Do you want me to like take a look at it really quick? And, I just kept hanging out and talking to more people, and before I knew it, I was talking to kind of the gym owner and told him, hey, I've been hearing about some of your guys, aches and pains, injuries, like, what do you say we do a little study and kind of get it all on paper so that, we can start getting to the bottom of what causes these things and what's the best way to treat some of these injuries.
Were they open to that at first or resistant?
A little hesitant. I remember when I talked to the owner of the gym, he kind of heard about it. He's like, okay. And he just didn't say much. And then I talked to his wife, and she was like, yeah, maybe you guys should sit down for a meeting. And then a couple days later, I saw him again at the gym, while he was training, and he looked at me and he kind of said, he's like, no, let's get it down on paper. He was like, yeah, let's get it down.
What do you think their fear is by talking about injury?
I think I definitely had to make sure that when I was telling them we were doing the study that I wasn't going to, put this out on Twitter, about all their injuries. And I think, in the era of social media, a lot of that information can get out of hand really quick. And these guys are competing against, competing for their livelihood, a lot of them. I mean, they're professional ones, So I don't think they want to see it as a sign of weakness. So they don't want, somebody knowing their weaknesses, knowing exactly what parts of their body are ailing, or if they're ailing at all. So I just wanted to make sure to let these guys know, I'm just at this gym. I'm not going to like start like take all your injury secrets, go to another gym and tell them all. And I think they understood that once they kind of saw me here on a consistent basis working out, and knew that I wasn't just, here to sell them out or something.
You're in here working in a gym and you meet this doctor that comes in. Tell me about your first experience.
Yeah, JP, I met him, I think maybe he was, taking some classes and stuff, and I got to know him, and then, he made the mistake of telling me that he's a doctor, and just over the years, I've turned to him so many times, even for my last fight, going through the training camp. I had a lot of problems with my knee because I had knee surgery, and he was able to, help me out and get me where I needed to be. So
Were you leery at first to talk to him about different injuries, or what made him comfortable to talk to?
Well, for me, what made it comfortable to talk to JP was because he wasn't just this this doctor that had or was just familiar with sports in general. He was actually on the mat training and doing jiu-jitsu and doing wrestling and doing the kickboxing and stuff. So he could identify with the specific problems and issues that I was having. So it made it so easy to talk to him. A lot of doctors, I talk to, they don't understand what I'm doing. They think I'm just doing like karate or something. They can't make the connection. So with him, it kind of cut to the chase a lot. To get to what we needed to get to.
Did you think it was strange that a doctor was in your gym working out and training like you were?
Yeah, I thought it was really strange. That doesn't happen. I mean, you don't really see that. Usually when they do it, it's kind of more of like a cardio thing or a fitness thing. But he was actually involved in the the technique and stuff, and that was really cool. And I think it's people see the sport as an art, and they get involved and they get interested, and it doesn't matter if they're a doctor or what their profession is. It kind of has its appeal to anybody.
What were your findings from your study that you did?
So we found a couple things. A lot of the thing was kind of taking the information on what we knew before. So before the study, what we knew was that during competitions, the injuries that were diagnosed by the ringside physician, usually ER docs, were hand lacerations, face lacerations, and sprains. My question was like, what with sprains? Like, that's just this giant topic, and these are only in competition. So what we did find was that most of the fighters get injured during training, not during their actual fight. So that kind of means that the majority of the injuries haven't been talked about at all, because all the literature has just been during the competitions. The other thing was that they're being evaluated by ringside physicians who have to do kind of quick evaluations and are only noticing kind of superficial, obvious stuff. What we found is that most people actually have kind of shoulder and knee injuries are the ones that are actually keeping them out of practicing. Hand injuries, wrist injuries, feet, they're all there, but nothing quite like the number of shoulder and knee injuries that we hadn't expected that many. So the other thing was we found out when they are kind of having these injuries. So I think the perception probably amongst community is these guys are all getting hurt during those leg locks or arm locks, or punching each other in the face and kicking each other in the ribs. And the truth of it is the majority of the injuries were sustained while wrestling. The last thing that we noticed was that the injury rate wasn't any higher than high school football. Wow. And that you would think that, this is kind of a brutal sport, that it would be probably the highest injury rate by far, and it really is not the case. And I think the reason is that it's most of the training is at kind of half speed, 3/4 speed. These guys aren't usually going full blast at each other, and that's what I think the fighters would tell me too. They were like, I feel more like I'm gonna get injured playing basketball, pick up basketball where I'm running full speed, than I do training jiu-jitsu.
What is your hope for these guys that they will eventually learn about their bodies and about injuries?
I think my goal is that the MMA athletes at a high level are probably the most informed athletes out there. I think that
in what way?
Informed about their bodies, what's a serious injury, what's not. I think in a lot of ways the athletes at a high level have been uninformed about their own bodies, and which makes it harder for the doctors to kind of understand and diagnose. There's nothing nicer than having a person who comes in and understands what might be going on and kind of the nuances or how a doctor would be thinking about things. And I think in a sport that's this young, there is the opportunity to really kind of have a population or cohort of people that really kind of gets it and comes in and is like very mindful of their body. So that's kind of my goal, is to have MMA athletes be some of the most well-informed athletes about their body and injuries, and to kind of be an example of what we can get the other sports to.